What is the most unstoppable move in rugby? The goose step? The bosh? The fend? None of the above. The most unstoppable move in rugby is the offload. The act of making one or more of the opposition defenders commit to you, whilst also moving the ball away to one of your teammates away from the point of contact, is the goal that every attacking scheme or system is trying to achieve. Making offloading the ball well, consistently, actually one of the hardest and most effective things you can do as an attacking player or team in rugby, with players like Sonny Bill Williams and Leon Nakarawa's talents for this skill making them invaluable to the teams they played for. So why is this the case? How come it's so effective? And how can we do more of this both as individuals, playing the game ourselves, as well as the bigger picture level with teams and strategies moving forward? Let's discuss. So before we get into talking about all the benefits and pros of the offload in rugby, we must first talk about rucking and its history within the game. So, rucking in rugby has a very interesting history, from the early days of the game where it was basically just an organised fight with some of the craziest, most barbaric feats of thuggery you've ever seen in organised sport, to our now more sterile but equally brutal rucks that we have in our game today. But the objective of the ruck has remained the same throughout the years: get the ball back as quick as possible from when the tackle is made. And rugby year on year has got faster and faster at doing this, as the faster your ruck speed, the less time for the defence to set, and ultimately opportunities and mismatches are far more likely to occur. Now, teams have been constantly innovating to try and gain an edge in this facet of the game with great variety, like France for a few years now have been lessening the amount of players they have committed to their attacking rucks when they get on top of the defence, trusting their players to have only one guy clear the ruck and seal, with the 9 playing away as quickly as possible, almost like a sevens team. Whereas teams like the Springboks have focused on the mindset and intent behind the clear out, with their revolutionary 7-1 split of forwards and backs in their replacements, allowing their heavy and powerful forwards no excuse for not pulverising rucks on their ball, which either discourages players from going for the jackal or just old school clears the breakdown with such dynamism that the ball is quick and they can get on top and attack. Now, with all that said, how does offloading come into this? Well, the act of offloading bypasses the ruck entirely and takes your goal from, let's say, a 3-second ruck with 2 or more defenders committed to the area around the tackle to 0 seconds, and you yourself haven't committed any of your attacking players to the ruck. You see, whilst I was playing a bit of 10s and 7s over the last few weeks, something I noticed while I was playing was that the teams who could offload effectively while still moving forward were the most frustrating and tiring teams to defend against, because essentially there were less rucks, nowhere to reset your defense, nowhere to slow the ball down. It would just be a constant onslaught and you'd feel so stretched and stressed as a defensive line, having to constantly react with no room for mental respite. And when the shoe is on the other foot and the teams I was playing for were doing this as well, we were extremely successful. So let's discuss firstly how it's done effectively and efficiently, then secondly if an offload focused game could work in the 15s game as well. So in layman's terms, an offload is just when you can pass the ball to your teammate whilst you're being tackled. But when you look at the great offloaders like Sonny Bill Williams or Leon Nakarawa, you see that they always offload from an advantageous position. So the first lesson is that you must be physically dominant in your carry, and if you want to use an old school term, win the collision. And the reason that these two men are so good at what they do isn't just because they have very long arms and they're big strong boys, it's because they use that strength cleverly and know how to maneuver their body in ways that allow them to be falling forward instead of backwards when they offload. You hear it growing up all the time where a young player has lost a collision and he tries to panic offload to his teammates and the teammate drops it, and afterwards you'll hear an inevitable shout from the sidelines of "don't shovel stuff," which I don't always believe in as a hard and fast rule, as if you can get an offload away safely while being monstered, I reckon do it. But the key, I think, and the lesson to be learned, and why these two players were so consistent, is that even in those situations where they might not be winning the collision, they are always in control. Which leads into my second lesson, which is knowing when it's on. There are a lot of players that have the skills and physical abilities to be an elite offloader, but sometimes, especially in younger players, they don't have the rugby IQ to know when it's on to throw the offload and when it's just better to hang on. But I believe that is a skill in itself and something you can train, despite it often being a split-second decision. So here are 3 things you need to look out for when deciding whether you're going to chuck an offload. Number 1. How crowded is my surrounding area? If there is an inkling that you think your offload is going to be slapped down or intercepted, lock it down, tuck it in, and get ready for a long present, buddy. It's a major bugbear of mine, players throwing offloads in places they should never throw them. Quick scan, if there's no dudes, throw it. If there's blokes, tuck, please. Number 2, how ready is the person I'm throwing it to? Are they calling for the ball? Are they telling me to go to ground? Where are their hands? These are all context clues to whether you should throw the ball. Listen and look. If they're trying to ruck over, don't chuck the ball at them and then be upset that they dropped it. That's not on them, that's on you. But if they are calling for it and they have their hands up, have a look. And number 3, this is a little bit harsh, but who are you passing it to? Do they have crap hands? Do you have chemistry with this person and they will expect you to throw it? Bottom line, if you don't trust them, don't throw it. And even though you'd like to trust all your teammates, some you trust more than others. And that choice of trust can be the difference between you looking very good or very silly. So now we know how it's done as an individual. Let's now discuss whether a 15s team with a heavy emphasis on offloading and attack could work in the modern full-sided version of the sport. Well, the short answer is it has, but not for a prolonged period of time. The longest period of time I saw it was where the 2009 to about 2011 Quins teams would focus their attack in the middle of the pitch and almost form a diamond formation to follow in behind each other looking for the offload. And the best team I've seen do it with sadly a short period of success was the Wasp team during the 2019-20 season, just after Dai Young had left the team. Lee Blackett came in and basically changed the whole focus of the team to expressing yourself, and expressly telling his team to practice one-handed offloads in training. And this new mindset saw the team that had just let go of its coach reach the Premiership final that year, scoring some amazing tries. But those examples are pretty tame compared to the potential style of play that you would see from a 7s or 10 side, with offloading more being an extra feather in their cap for those teams rather than the main thing, for reasons such as the inherent risk of an offloading game, as well as the need to be constantly moving forward in 15s. But I believe there are ways to make this work, but they may be beyond our modern professionals, for now. But to play like this, I believe you would have to both not play with a traditional 9-10 dynamic, as well as not use the typical players to every breakdown system that most teams do. Instead, you would have the 7-style rucking that I spoke about earlier, that France do on the front foot, having one guy rucking and sealing, with whoever is the nearest person to the ruck playing 9. And you would have your 2 playmakers always the first pass off the breakdown, to maintain your width and attack and not limit your passing game. And I don't think this would interfere with the modern structure of attacking play that much, as most teams seem to either spread their forwards out in a 1-3-3-1 formation, or have 2 big pods of 4 around the middle of the field. But luckily with both systems, they are designed so that there is usually 2 players ready to clear the ruck whenever someone carries. So it just changes the roles slightly. Instead of both clearers coming into the ruck, with one of them clearing beyond the ruck and the other one sealing it, it would instead be one hitting and sticking while sealing the ball off, while the other quickly plays the ball away as the 9. I believe that this would create a fast enough tempo in attack that the oppositions would struggle to make dominant hits, allowing for the offloading game to come a lot more easily, as contact would be so much easier to take on your terms, as well as the massive numbers advantage due to the lack of commitment to breakdowns from your own team when rucks do occur, as there is no way to completely avoid them in the 15s game. And I do understand that this is all hypothetical and a very long way away, as there are a few drawbacks to this style of playing, which I will list for you now. Number 1, it's inherently high risk with the improvised and free-flowing nature of it. Number 2, you can't really go backwards at any point, otherwise you'll be very susceptible to both unorganized shape with a lack of momentum, and also running a very high risk of getting counter up while you're only committing one player properly to the breakdown. And if that ball ever slows up, that is very likely. Number 3, your attack might not have time to get organised, and you could find yourself with too many men in a channel where there's space and they'd sort of get in each other's way. Number 4, you need a very skillful team with everyone comfortable passing from the base, as well as a team that is physically gifted and capable of offloading accurately, which if you don't have the personnel, would be very difficult. And number 5, it would be very hard for your 9s and 10s to control, as essentially vast parts of the game would become improv, and as I've discussed in a separate video, that can be very difficult and have its downsides. And I'm sure there's others I'm not thinking of, so we may be a decade or so from this in the men's game, or even more. But in the women's game, I reckon it could be a lot sooner. The women's game has come on leaps and bounds in the last 10 years and is going from strength to strength, with global superstars bringing attention to our sport as well as promoting it in new and exciting ways. And the rugby itself being exceptional in a slightly different way than the men's game, with physical mismatches being a lot more frequent, as well as a slightly shorter passing game. Offloading and longer carries on the ball are a massive part of the women's game, and from what I see, in a slightly less defensively physical environment, this kind of style could work very nicely, and who knows, we could very well see it in the near future. Signed NGJ.